Hello, I'm author Schmidt Hasson, and this is week 3 of the Safe, Seen, and Stretched book study. This week we're unpacking Chapter 3, Lessons on Power. As educators, we have the power to help or harm, to empower or demean. The things we say and do in our classroom, the kind of communities we create, has an impact on students' social, emotional, and academic well-being. So let's talk about how we use that power for good. In Chapter 3, I bring the reader along for my first real day of data collecting. I went to a craft fair about 30 minutes from my home, got there early, set up, put my sign out inviting people to chat with me about a teacher they remember. And a man named Joe, who was watching his wife's booth next to mine, leaned over and asked about my project. I explained it to him, and then I eagerly said, "Is there a teacher you remember?" And something happened that I knew would eventually come, but I'd been dreading. Joe said, "Oh, yes, Mrs. Reynolds. I had her for 2 years in elementary school." She said, "Joe, you're never going to amount to anything." She was so hard on me. He said I hated that class. Now, I knew I was going to hear memories that people carried for years or decades, of things that happened in the classroom that damaged their sense of self-worth, that maybe made them feel humiliated or shame. But lucky for me, a few minutes later, Joe leaned back over, and he said, I worked in a grocery store in high school, and Miss Reynolds used to come in." He said, and I realized at that time she was smaller than I remember her in elementary. At that time, she seemed so big. And I thought that was interesting because it kind of speaks to the power that she had, the way he saw her. And he said I would carry her groceries home for her from the store because she didn't live far. And on the way we would talk. And one day she said to me, "Joe, I know I was hard on you. I was hard on all the boys because I wanted you to work hard and have a better life." And he said, then I realized it wasn't me, that I really wasn't a bad kid, that she really didn't think I was dumb. She thought what she was doing was best for me. And I was so glad Joe and Miss Reynolds had those moments to make it right, because so many times when that happens in the classroom, there isn't that opportunity later to make it better. It's such a demonstration of the power of our words, and the fact that calling that tough love is not accurate. It's not love at all to harm someone's sense of self-worth, to talk to them in a demeaning way. We can hold high expectations. We can give kids feedback that they're not doing their best. We can push them to grow while still maintaining that sense of worthiness and still helping them feel important and valued and smart. So we have to think carefully about the power of our words. As teachers, we're in a position of authority. Kids see us as educated and wise, and often they see us as the arbiters of smartness, what it is and who has it. The way that we talk to them communicates what we believe about them, and they internalize that. Our words have an impact on their sense of self, on their sense of autonomy, competence, and intelligence. In fact, the way we talk to kids even has an impact on their relationships with peers. So it's up to us to think carefully about what we say and how we say it, because it matters and it can stick with kids for a really long time. But even more important than what we say sometimes is what we do. I know you've heard the saying, actions speak louder than words, and that is so true in our classrooms and schools. We know that kids are always watching and making inferences about what we believe based on the things we do, the choices that we make. What we do in the classroom communicates whether or not we think they're capable, whether or not we think they're worthy. And one of my favorite stories still came from that first day of data collecting at the craft fair. It was near the end of the day, and a man named John, who was clearly tired and had a bad knee that was hurting, came hobbling over and sat in the seat next to me. I think he really wanted to just rest for a few minutes. But I asked him to tell me about a teacher he remembered, and he told me the most inspiring story about Miss Andrews, his third grade teacher. He said as a kid he really felt unworthy, like he wasn't worthy of love and attention. He grew up in a home with a father who abused alcohol and abused his mother, and he just wasn't cared for the way he should have been. He said he realized how different his life was when he got to school, and he would look at the other kids in their clean, carefully pressed clothes, their carefully packed lunches, and he felt so different. But his teacher, Miss Andrews, did what she could to change that. She brought him snacks, and one day she invited him over to pick up a package she had for him after school. He said he took that package, wrapped in brown paper and tied up with string, and he ran all the way home and opened it to find 3 brand new, carefully pressed school shirts. He talked about that being a changing moment in his life because he realized he was worthy of love, worthy of care, worthy of attention. And he said from then on, whenever he started to feel unworthy, he would remind himself, Miss Andrews cares about me. Miss Andrews loves me. Ooh, still gets to me. And that was so many years ago that I heard this story, and I think about all of the decades that he carried that precious memory and how much it impacted his life. He said he thought, here's a teacher who couldn't have had much herself and made this sacrifice for him. And now that I think about it, it was such a small thing that it would have that much power. Just speaks to the power of our actions and these small acts of kindness in the classroom. He said from then on he would remind himself anytime he felt unworthy, Miss Andrews loves me. Miss Andrews cares for me. He grew up to be a firefighter, cared for so many people, saved lives, grew up to be a father of 2 beautiful adopted daughters, and absolutely cares for them in the way that every kid should be cared for. So those small actions in the classroom, when you give a kid discretionary attention, when you show kindness, when you respond in a way that says, hey, I do believe you're smart. You do believe you're competent. I do believe you're worthy of my time and attention, can leave a big, lasting, powerful impact on the life of a child. In addition to what we say and what we do, the kinds of communities we create in our classrooms speak volumes to kids. Do we create inclusive communities where everyone feels welcome and valued? How about the balance of power in our classrooms? Do we empower students, or do we hold all that power ourselves as teachers? What do we celebrate? What do we tolerate? How do we expect students to talk to each other and treat each other? I had the pleasure of meeting Lindsay and Monica at the craft fair that day. They work together. They have a skincare line. They're business partners now, but they became friends way back in elementary school when Lindsay moved from Virginia to Florida. She was very anxious about being the new kid, but luckily she ended up in Miss Donaldson's classroom. And whenever Miss Donaldson got a new kid, she empowered one of her current students to become their buddy and guide. So she paired Lindsay up with Monica. And Lindsay said, Monica showed me everything. In the lunchroom, she showed me where to sit. She helped me get my lunch. She pointed out which big kids to avoid. She helped me get to the library, pick out a library book. I felt so safe with Monica as my buddy and guide. And Monica gained this sense of confidence and confidence that she was the one who was helping this new friend along. And all these years later, still friends and business partners. What a beautiful community Miss Donaldson created by empowering students to help each other, by communicating an understanding of the anxiety a new student feels, speaks volumes to kids about their worth and about their classroom community. As teachers, we have to understand the power differential that exists in the student-teacher relationship. Just by our position of authority, Students internalize the things we say to them. They're always making inferences based on the things that we do, the choices that we make. We have incredible power to help or harm, and if we're thoughtful and intentional, we can do so much good. So coming up, reflection questions about power and this week's challenge. Reflection question 1. Think about a time someone in authority spoke to you in an affirming or empowering way. How did you feel about yourself when that happened? What impact did that have on you? Or on the other hand, was there ever a time when someone in a position of authority spoke to you in a way that was demeaning? What was the impact of that? Pause the video if you need to. Take a few notes. We'll be right back with reflection question 2. Reflection question 2. So many relationships naturally have different levels of power. It could be parent and child, teacher and student, even mentor and mentee. Think about the relationships where you might have a higher degree of power. Then think about the importance of what you say and do in those relationships. Pause the video if you need to. Coming up, we've got this week's challenge. Week 3 challenge. We've talked about the impact of our words and actions, especially when we're in a position of power or authority. So this week, when someone does something and you find yourself feeling frustrated or challenged, just pause for a minute. Think about the kind of impact you want to make. Choose your words and your actions carefully so that you can intentionally make a positive, lasting impact on the lives of the people around you. Thank you for all you do to make that kind of impact. Thank you for reading Safe, Seen, and Stretched, for watching, and I'll see you next week for Chapter 4.
Don't miss any of our upcoming content. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. And we'd love it if you'd head over to Amazon and leave a review of Safe, Seen, and Stretched in the Classroom. It will help other readers find the book.